Hey everybody, so I am just going to start the recording now. Thank you for attending our law session. I am Momina and I am your session coordinator for the night. So first of all, for those of you who are attending live, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to attend and ask your questions and, be attentive. But for those of you watching later, don't worry, we always have our stuff up on YouTube so you can watch it at your own leisure. So today we're really excited because we have a joint panel. We have Henna Parmar, who is a civil litigation lawyer. And then we also have Kirshita Seevaratnam, who is a securities lawyer. So how this session is going to be working is we're essentially going to bounce around between the two of them. So I'll ask a guided question and then they'll take turns answering about their personal experiences. And then near the end of the session, you can ask any questions that you may have for either of them. So let's get right into it. Kirshita, let's start with you to get to know your experience a little bit. The first question that I have is what university you attended and what type of courses you took in your undergrad.
I went to the University of Toronto and I double majored in health studies and psychology. I did a lot of electives in different areas, none of them related to law at all. My electives were, some of my electives were in like the sciencey side. I did a lot of like bio, chem, economics, business, anthropology type courses. At that stage in my life, I didn't consider law, so it was completely unrelated.
Oh, wow. So you just took like a bunch of things.
Yeah, I was never really clear about what I wanted to do at that time.
Oh, okay. So it was kind of like a safety net, do a little bit of everything, and then you're kind of set.
Yeah, or like, I focused on health studies and psychology. And then in terms of electives at U of T, you do have the opportunity to take a lot of electives. My electives, like everywhere.
Oh, I see. I see. And
Yeah.
Henna, what about you? For university, where did you go and like what type of courses did you take in your undergrad?
So, like Kirshita, I also went to the University of Toronto and I did a double major in psychology and criminology. Um, because I did two majors and a minor, I didn't really have that much room for electives. So, all of my courses were mainly psychology, sociology, and criminology.
Oh, so you didn't have like that much room to take other electives like sciences and stuff.
No.
Okay, so you had a very geared path, whereas you had a more sporadic and a bit of everything.
Yes.
Interesting. So a question I have for you, Kirshita, is what was the law school admission process like for you, or the LSAT in general?
So I actually wrote the LSAT once. I found the LSAT difficult. I found it more difficult than the bar exam. I took the Kaplan course, which was helpful. I would advise students to dedicate more time to practice exams and do as much as possible to get better with timings. That's one of the things. I did practice exams. I don't think I did as many as I should have. In terms of law school application process, as soon as I finished my LSAT once, I was looking at universities abroad as well. So I was looking at universities in the States, in Australia, in the UK, and I applied to universities in the UK. And once I got my admission, I just pursued that avenue. The process to apply to law school in the UK is fairly straightforward. So you use this website called UCAS, UCAS, and apply to the universities of your choice. You have to submit your undergraduate transcript, personal statements, and reference letters. I got my reference letters from my professors at U of T. So, and there's some positives to it and some negatives. So one of the hard part about going to law school abroad is there's a lot of upfront costs. For example, banks are less likely to give you student loans if you're going to school abroad. I don't believe you can get OSAP, but there are scholarships available to even Canadian students when you do go abroad. So I didn't actually apply to these scholarships, but I know they're available and they're based, and you get them based on how you perform academically.
Okay. And Henna, what about you?
So I took a year off after my undergraduate studies and I started studying for the LSAT in about in August. And I wrote the December LSAT. And once I wrote it and got my score, I didn't think it was going to be good enough. So I wrote it again in February. However, I did start getting acceptances based on my December LSAT score. And I was working part-time as well. However, closer to the date of the LSAT, I took time off and studied for the LSAT as if it were my full-time job. And I also took a course like Kirshita with Oxford seminars. However, for me personally, it wasn't helpful. I found for me what worked best was self-studying. And I did a bunch of past LSAT practice exams. I probably practiced on all the past LSAT exams. And my best advice would be to do the LSAT under timed conditions, because the LSAT is an endurance test. And I mean, if we had all the time in the world, everyone would do good.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest challenge for me. And something else that helped me boost my score was to build on my strengths. So with the LSAT, people usually have sections that they're good in and then sections that are more challenging. So for me, my strength was the logic games. So I kept practicing, so I was able to perfect all 4 games. And I knew that my weakness was the reading comprehension section. So I just tried my best to be able to perfect 3 passages. And then with the 4th one, if I didn't have time, I would just guess. And in terms of the application process, I applied to schools in Canada because I knew I wanted to stay in Canada. And I got accepted into the dual JD program in Windsor, and I wanted to stay in Ontario, so I accepted it. And the way that it works is once you get accepted, you have a set time period and a date that you can accept the offer by. And if you don't accept the offer by that time, they will take away your offer and give it to somebody else. So if you're on a wait list at a different school, or if you're waiting to hear back from another school, you may have to potentially give that up or give up your acceptance.
Okay. I have a question for you that I know a lot of law students think about. Essentially, after undergrad, we get really burned out. And some of us may want to consider taking a year off, but that comes with a lot of anxiety because we don't know if we're going to get accepted into law school having that gap year. Like, you never know how competitive the next year batch will be. So my question for you is, how did that impact you taking a year off instead of jumping right into law school?
So for me personally, I also felt a lot of pressure. And once 4th year came around, I was also considering, like, should I write the LSAT? Should I take a year off? But I knew that, like you said, I was feeling burnt out, especially because I knew that 3rd year and 4th year marks mattered so much when you're applying to law school. I wanted to make sure that I had really good grades. And I also wanted to make sure that I got a really good LSAT score. So I knew that I couldn't do both. So I did take the year off, and I also wanted to build on my resume. So I did a lot of volunteering and I did a lot of networking with my time off to kind of build that as well. And in terms of not getting accepted just because you take a year off, I just don't think that's the case, because a lot of people in my class were much older. There were people in my class that were in their 50s, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, so it's never too late to go to law school. And I think if you need to take the year off, then there should be no stigma attached to that.
Okay, so that might just be a misconception then.
I
Interesting.
definitely think so. I don't know if Krishita has anything to add.
No, I found the same thing. So I went to school in the UK, like I mentioned earlier, and there were, lots of people were older. I think there were about 3 or 4 students from Canada who were over the age of 45. And they're all practicing lawyers like successfully right now. So I don't think there's really a barrier. Sometimes everyone's life, everyone takes different paths. Sometimes, you want to do different things at different stages in your life. I don't think it always acts as a barrier. It builds on who you are and how you enter the journey and your whole journey.
It must just be like really interesting to be sitting in class as a 19-year-old and then like your group project is with someone who's 55.
Yeah.
But I guess that's law school for you. So the next question I had for you, Kirshita, is kind of UK specific. So you went abroad, and I wanted to know what challenges that posed to you when you wanted to practice in Canada, because you did obtain a UK law degree.
Okay, so when you obtain a law degree in the UK or abroad, you have to cross qualify in Canada. So there are specific Canadian courses or Canadian specific courses that you have to take. And these are Canadian administrative law, Canadian Constitution, foundations of Canadian law, Canadian criminal law, because it's codified in Canada versus in the UK, it's not codified, and professional responsibility. These courses are when you have your degree from another country and you submit your transcript, these are the courses that every student will have to do because they're missing it. I did this through the NCAs, which is self-studying, very similar to law school itself. And I got through it in a few months. It was fairly straightforward. I was able to use the same skills that I used in law school, and yeah, I didn't find it overly difficult. People who don't like to self-study, like some of my friends, they did the process through Osgood or U of T or UBC. They offer these courses independently. They also offer it as an LLM as well, which is another avenue you can take. So that process is not overly difficult. Some students do face, because there's a large number of people coming from overseas to cross-qualify in Canada, there are some stigmas that you can anticipate. But I personally don't think those are, they shouldn't act as real barriers. When you show that you're a hard worker, if you have good grades, you network, I don't think they actually stand as significant barriers. I was interviewed at very top organizations, and all of that was just all it required me to do is show that I'm a hard worker, network. I networked as much as possible. I had very good mentors. Having great mentors, reach out to people, and also make sure you stick out in every application. If you think you can't blend with everyone else, and if you can do things to make yourself stick out, from extra courses, getting involved, pro bono work, join clinics, all of that helped me.
Nice. So it's essentially just like a conversion.
Yeah.
You basically studied in UK, then you just came and took the necessary Canadian courses, and then you were able to practice.
Well, then you have to do the articling process, and then you have to write the bar exam that everyone else writes as well. So doing the NCAs just mean that now you're equivalent to a student that completed
in Canada.
Law school in Canada. Exactly. So you have to have, and the exams you get, the exams that you're required to do in the NCA process, that's based on the courses that you took and the grades that you achieved. So if you don't have the grades that they expect you to take, or they expect you to get when you complete your law school abroad, then you have to redo those exams.
Oof.
So it's not really just taken at face value.
Yes, that makes perfect sense, because you do need to have good grades, especially if you're a practicing lawyer. Just logical. Henna, my question for you was, why law, and why specifically charter litigation? Like, being interested in law is one fact, but there's so many branches and avenues that are really interesting, like criminal, tort. But what specifically geared you towards law, and then why did you pick charter litigation?
Okay, so in terms of why I picked law, like most immigrant parents, my options were either being a doctor or a lawyer.
Or an engineer? Don't forget engineer. That's a good one.
They didn't really push me towards engineer or accountant. It was either you're going to be a doctor or you're going to be a lawyer, which was fine because I knew that I always wanted to help people. And being a doctor was just not an option for me, because when I had to dissect a pig in biology, I could not do it. And I don't like blood. But so in my religion, in Sikhism, we're taught to help others. And I learned this at a very young age, because when we go to the temple, everyone's donating food, and then we all go to the kitchen and cook, and then we distribute the food. And I kind of just continued doing that throughout my life. And I volunteered a lot in my community. I volunteered with my MPP, several nonprofit organizations. I volunteered with the John Howard Society, which is a nonprofit that helps individuals that have been involved in the criminal justice system. I also volunteered with Innocence Canada and Safe City, which is a nonprofit organization that helps marginalized youth that live in at-risk communities. So helping those that needed it the most was something that I always found very fulfilling. And I knew I wanted a career path where I would be able to help people and actually make a difference. And while I was at the John Howard Society, I had the opportunity to do a presentation on a relevant topic in social justice. And so at that time, Canada was kind of in the works of deciding whether they wanted to make sex offender registries available to the public. And so I took the position that they should not be made available to the public. And so when I did my presentation, I started by asking the question, who in this room thinks that the registries should be available to the public? And everyone had raised their hands. And I finished my presentation, and once again, I asked who in this room thinks that the registry should be available to the public, and only 1 or 2 people raised their hands. And just to be able to see that I have the ability to persuade people, it really made me realize that I wanted to use my voice to help people, and that's why I chose a career path in law. I did, and then in terms of why civil litigation and not criminal, I did article at a criminal defense firm. I did think that I was going to continue doing criminal law. However, while I was articling in criminal law, I realized that criminal law draws a law on the charter. So Section 8, the right against unreasonable search and seizure, Section 9, the right not to be arbitrarily detained, Section 10B, the right to speak to a lawyer, it all draws on the charter. And so the charter is something that I'm really, really interested in. And where I work now, I do civil litigation, but I also do some criminal work. But all the work that we do involves charter litigation.
So you know the charter really, really well.
I don't know about really, really well, but I'm learning.
Okay, that's okay. I don't know it at all. So we're learning together. It's fine. So Kirshita, what about you? What drove you towards law? And then conversely, why security lawyer?
Okay, so after I graduated from U of T, I wasn't completely clear about what I wanted to do. As I mentioned earlier, I thought I wanted to be in the science field. That's what I always thought I'd end up doing. It's something in the sciencey field. I thought I might go into clinical psychology or maybe even social work. I was debating different avenues and I was looking through different options. And I started working as an adjuster for an insurance company. And this was my first exposure to the law. I worked closely with counsel on claims that were not settled. And I had the opportunity to attend mediations, pre-hearings, and settlement conferences. I was working together with lawyers to drafting documents that were required, and I enjoyed the experience. I liked what I was doing as an adjuster. By far, I did enjoy my job, but I wanted to do more. And after working with lawyers, I thought, you know what, that was my first exposure and this is what I want to do. And at that point, 1 year into my role, I started looking into my LSATs and law school. And then I worked as an adjuster for almost 2 years, maybe about a year and 10 months. But 1 year in, I knew I wanted to pursue law.
Nice. And then did you pick security law for a specific reason or?
No, it just fell together. So I wanted to do criminal law and I articled at a criminal defense firm. That's where me and Henna met. We both articled downtown Toronto.
Oh, besties. Nice.
Yeah. So that was my passion. I loved it. And after articling at a criminal defense firm, that experience led me to working for a securities regulator in the enforcement department. And my primary job at this organization was criminal litigation, but I was taught the securities law. So I was hired based on my criminal law experience, but then I was trained on all the securities law. And as a natural stepping stone, now I'm completely in securities law. I'm specifically acting as policy counsel in the securities world now. So it was just a stepping stone. I never really planned for it, but it's worked out for me.
Yeah, it's just the way that the cookie crumbled. It just kind of fell into place for you. I
Yeah.
understand that. So this is a question that I sort of have, not necessarily for everybody, but I just think it would be beneficial to know for law students how to make your application stand out, because everyone can have a 4.0 GPA. They may have the same grades as you. They may have extracurriculars. They may have volunteer experiences, but these are standard things. And nowadays it's even more competitive because people are getting extracurriculars and good grades and volunteer experiences all together. And that's just standard stuff. So my question is, in such a competitive day and age, how do we as current potential lawyers one day apply to law school hoping that our application will stand out?
Well,
I can start.
okay, go ahead, Henna.
Okay, so I kind of want to backtrack and go back to the first question you asked me, which was, will you get accepted if you take a year off? However, I think it's actually the opposite. If you go in like more mature, I guess, I don't know if that's the right term, but it kind of shows maturity and it shows experience and it shows that, you know, you kind of know what you're gonna do. In terms of when you're like fresh out of school or just even taking a year off, I agree. It's really competitive and it can be hard to have a stellar application, but a lot of law schools, especially in Ontario when I was applying, you had to write a personal statement. And first of all, I think it helps if you genuinely want to go to law school and you have genuine reasons for it. So I would definitely take advantage of the personal statement. I had a lot of professors and people that I was working with review my personal statement. And on top of that, I think you also want to develop a good relationship with your professors, because I'm pretty sure when I was applying for law schools, they also asked for recommendation letters. So getting some stellar recommendation letters, I think, will also help your application stand out. And also in terms of volunteer experience, I think you should cater it to law and maybe like the area of law that you're actually interested in, that you're going to talk about in your personal statement. I think that would be helpful as well.
Yeah, Henna, you're bang on. Like that's everything you need to do. So like, yeah, make sure you like building a relationship with your undergraduate professors is very helpful. Even though I applied to law school, when I was applying to law school, I was 25. So I graduated at 21, I believe, because I had the relationships with my previous professors. They still reviewed my personal statements. They gave me very good recommendations. Like, these are things that will help you, that will make you stand out. And again, like Henna said, like volunteering in areas that you're interested in. And, you know, I can understand that, you know, when you're young and before you go to law school, you may not know exactly what area of law you want to practice, but the area, even just going to a law firm and exposing yourself to different areas of law will help.
I think that was really helpful. Sorry, Henna, go ahead.
I just wanted to share a story. So I know, like, initially I used to be very intimidated to go to my professor's office hours. However, eventually, like when I knew I needed to get really good marks, I started forcing myself to do it. And I actually ended up building a really good relationship with one of my professors. And so even after the class was over, I would still visit her regularly. And then in fourth year, I just went into her office hours, kind of told her like what I'm interested in, like what I'm doing. And I told her that I was, somehow the conversation of human sex trafficking came up, and she was like, you know what, why don't you write a thesis on it? So I ended up writing the thesis on international sex trafficking and human rights. And I think that definitely helped my application as well. But she kind of pushed me into doing it and really encouraged me and supported me. So definitely take advantage of your professors. Like, you're paying a lot of tuition money and they're there to help you. So definitely take advantage of it.
I really appreciate that advice, especially the personal statement and going to office hours to build relationships with them, because, other competitors, they may have the same GPA as you, but having your professor's personal recommendation letter and having that solid relationship with them, they can advocate for you and fight for you. And these are established professionals in their career. So thank you for that advice. That's really helpful. My next question for you, Kirshita, is can you describe to us what a typical day pre-COVID, of course, would be like in your life?
So as a securities lawyer, so it's
interesting. Yeah, as a lawyer, not as in like I wake up, I eat breakfast.
So interestingly, I only worked in the office for probably 3 months pre-COVID, and then I've been working from home since. So my pre-COVID experience is limited. So initially I was working for a regulator in the enforcement department. That's different to what I'm currently doing as policy counsel. So I can't really draw on exactly what every securities lawyer's lives are pre-COVID, but I can tell you I can tell you about my current day, my current life as a securities lawyer or as a policy counsel. So every day is every day is very different for me. So some days are completely spent discussing regulatory issues relating to capital markets and changes required in the area with other regulators and thought leaders. I spend a lot of time conducting research into existing laws to analyze where there's shortcomings, how Canadian laws compare to other jurisdictions, and how the laws are keeping up with technology and investment trends. I also spend a lot of my time commenting on behalf of my organization on government policy proposals. So these are just some of my tasks that I do, but it's very hard for me to tell you what I do every day because today and tomorrow are very different. But a lot of what I do is advocating for policy change in the capital market sphere.
So securities law, from my understanding, sounds very research intensive and not really like you go to court, but it's
it's not really like that, actually. So securities law are laws laws and regulations governing financial instruments like stocks, mutual funds, bonds, right? And there's rules in place to prevent fraud, insider trading, market manipulation, and promoting transparency in the complex system. So there are some securities lawyers who do completely transactional work. And that would be lawyers that represent public companies. And then there would be lawyers working in the regulatory sphere who they would be looking into enforcement action, making sure of regulatory compliance. So most of the lawyers, for example, at the Ontario Securities Commission would be regulatory lawyers. And then there's litigation lawyers who represent investors who may have been like either defrauded or who've lost their money in an investment. Then there's litigation lawyers. So there are there are litigation lawyers, there's administrative lawyers, there's regulatory lawyers, and there's transaction lawyers, all within securities law. And research is a big part of it because the law is always changing and people are always looking to change. And as technology grows, this is an area that also develops. So always continue. You always have to learn more when you're practicing securities law. But I think that's the same in any area of law. There's always learning.
I agree. Law is forever adapting, especially with amendments changing and policies being made. For example, Doug Ford just made the new notwithstanding clause from the charter the other day. He just used it. It's always changing. Henna, what about you? So what's a typical day like in your life?
So like Kirshita, I also don't have a typical day. Each day is very different. But because I'm a litigation lawyer, my responsibilities include going to court, interviewing clients, doing research, drafting pleadings, drafting factums. And so I was extremely fortunate to be co-counsel on the hotel quarantine case. And that was litigated in federal court 2 weeks ago. I'm not sure how familiar you are with it, but we were challenging the constitutionality of mandatory quarantine hotel requirements for air travelers.
Mhm.
And we argued how those rules violated 7 different sections of the charter. So for the past 5 months, I've been working with several applicants, doing interviews, drafting affidavits, drafting factums, doing cross-examinations, preparing for oral submissions, actually doing oral submissions. So I love that every day is different. And I also got to host a panel on COVID checkpoints on First Nation reserves. And we're also trying to put together a system where we can organize and host other panels where we get to inform the general public about their rights under the charter. So I hope that answers.
That's a really good idea, because a lot of people don't know their charter rights.
Thank you. And I heard a lot.
Yeah, I heard about the hotel case, but I'm not sure. Did they reach a verdict yet, or?
No, so we're still waiting on a decision. Hopefully we get it soon. But I know, I think I read some news articles saying that they're now getting rid of the restrictions for fully vaccinated people. So I think that's a start.
That's good. So this is more of just a personal question, but law is a very subjective field, but there are areas in which it can be kind of challenging to be a lawyer. For example, if you're a family lawyer, you obviously are dealing with perhaps domestic or spouse or children, sibling feuds, those type of things, and that can take a toll on a person. So there are disadvantages to being a lawyer as well. So when we have these sessions, usually we always talk about the money that a lawyer makes, the amazing people they help, all of the crazy cool things they get to do. But what I want to ask you is, are there any downsides in your field or anything that's kind of difficult for you to get through? Kirshita, we can start with you.
I can start. So as a securities lawyer, you don't see, you're not always emotionally involved. It is an area of law that just deals with a lot of money. This is applicable again to lots of other areas of law as well. But one of the downfalls is securities lawyers generally work very, very long hours. So if you're interested in securities law, that's something you should be mindful of. There's a lot of work. There's lots of work, regardless of what type of security. You explained earlier, if you're a securities lawyer, you could be working in transactions. You can work as a litigator. I work as a policy lawyer. But no matter what you do, you're going to be committing a lot of your time to it.
Yeah, and just to kind of build off what Kirshita said, like I agree with her. I'm pretty sure this applies to any area in law, but even with litigation, it's very long hours. And like you said, like some of the work is emotionally taxing because, especially me, like I get so invested in the client. And so I think something that helps is, of course, having like a work-life balance and trying to make sure that you do get some time for yourself. And also something that helps me is celebrating the wins, the little ones. And if I'm going through something challenging, I definitely talk to someone about it. Where we articled, we had amazing mentors, and they're still always there for me. So I definitely talk to someone if I need that.
Okay, thank you so much. This is more of a technical question, but essentially in your case, when you're a lawyer and you're fighting for these court cases, if you lose, what essentially happens to you? Like, do you still get paid? Does that get taken away? Like, for example, let's take the hotel case. Let's say you win, perfect, awesome, yay for us. But if you lost, what would be the consequences of that? Because your job as a lawyer is to win these cases.
So we're a nonprofit organization, and we, all of our clients that we help we're doing it for no money.
Okay.
We get funded by the government. We work off donations. So I guess it depends. I think what you're talking about is like contingency basis. And in those cases, I think that mostly applies to like personal injury. But I think in those cases, if you win, you get a percentage. Like, I'm not really sure how it works. From my experience, when I was working in criminal defense, you got paid before you went to court. And now with the hotel quarantine case, because it's a public interest standing case, if we lose, we're asking for no cost. And if we win, we're also asking for no costs.
Okay, so you win either way.
Yeah.
Pretty much. What about
Yeah.
you, Kirshita? Is there any consequences to losing? Like maybe if you're part of a firm?
No, so in my organization, no, we're paid regardless, and most lawyers are paid paid regardless. So even if you're defending a criminal case, we both articled at a criminal defense firm. So regardless of what the final determination, like what it turns out to be, where you're paid up front, there's a retainer in place, you have hourly rates or block fees that you arrange or you agree with the client up front, and the consequence doesn't determine if a lawyer gets paid or not, especially in criminal or family. That's not how it works, because ultimately that can impact the way a lawyer performs. So there's no real contingency fees for those areas. But like Henna said, areas such as personal injury would be based on contingency fees. I think what usually happens is if they can't get you your money back, then they don't get paid. So ultimately they're trying to get you a settlement, and they may get maybe 25% of the settlement. So it's in their interest also to get you the best possible, negotiate the best possible settlement for you. So based on the area of law you work in, the way you get paid is slightly different.
Okay,
But
I
like,
was thinking of contingency. Sorry,
so
continue.
we're both associates. So for us, that doesn't really apply because we both get paid salaries.
Yeah, we just get paid.
Yeah.
You just get how nice for you. Great. I'm kidding. Yes, I was referring to contingency. The word specifically just slipped my mind at the moment. But yeah, I was curious about that. So a question for you guys is, if you were talking to your younger selves, or me in this case, I'll be your younger self for argument's sake, what advice would you have for us just as aspiring legal professionals? Maybe something you wish you didn't do, something you wish you did.
Did you want me to start, Henna, or did you want to go?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I would tell my younger self to just believe in myself and not to dwell on small setbacks. At the end of the day, hard work always pays off, and everything will fall into place. As cheesy as it sounds, this was my entire experience. As I mentioned earlier, I was never sure about what I wanted to do when I finished U of T. I knew I wanted to do more, and that was it. I didn't even consider law at that stage, but now everything, it's falling together, and I can now say that, law is probably is my calling, and I wish I just knew that back then. So if you're passionate about the law or a specific area of law, I think you should go for it. It's a rewarding career, and try hard. Put your 100% in, and you will see results.
And Henna, what about you? What would you say?
I think I would just add to what Kirshita said, and just believe in yourself. You are good enough, and everything is going to fall into place. So my advice to anyone that's listening to this would be, if you're like one bad grade, or not getting the job that you want, not getting into the school that you want, like, it's not be all and all. Everything is going to fall into place and work out. You just have to believe in yourself and know that it's going to work out, which I know is easier said than done, because it's hard to know that everything is going to work out.
But it's still, thank you for saying that, because as people who've been in our shoes, it's encouraging to hear you say, just believe in yourself, you'll get there, because you actually know you have been in our shoes at one point in time.
Exactly. We were both in your shoes at one point. I 100%. I wasn't sure if I was going to make it. I wasn't sure if I'm just wasting all my money. Am I going to fail? But no, 100%. And not just me and Henna, but a lot of my colleagues, they're all doing fine. They're all either, if they don't have their dream job right now, they're on their path to their dream job. Like the next step would be their dream job. Everyone's, you know, it might be baby steps, it might be bigger steps, but you're getting there.
Yeah, you were actually perfectly in my shoes because we both go to U of T. So.
And I just want to give an example of that. Like when I wrote the December LSAT and I got my score back, I was just so crushed because I was like, I'm never gonna get into law school with this score. I need to
write. But then you did.
And then I wrote it again, but I ended up getting acceptances based on my first initial score. So like just believe in yourself.
Nice. Does anyone from the audience, people who are watching right now, have any questions for Kirshita and Henna? I know I took a majority of the session with my questions. I apologize.
That's okay. We forgive you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions before they go? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, I think that's good. Do you guys have any last minute things you want to say? You could plug your socials if you'd like.
Follow the logram.
Yes.
What is the logram?
Oh.
I'm sorry, no offense. What is the logram?
So the logram is an Instagram platform that me and Henna both operate together. We started this Instagram account in October. It's an account where we try to provide information to average Canadians on their rights. Henna, did you want to explain some more about it? Because I didn't want to. I can go forever.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So basically, we provide information to average Canadians about their rights. At the moment, we receive questions that Canadians would like to get answered, and these are questions either applicable to the sender themselves or their family members, and we try to get the answer out on a post or direct them to the correct source. And it's been working well for us. Like we just do this in our on our own time. It's not a part of work. I think it's going well. What do you think, Henna?
Sorry, you cut out, or my.
Oh, so no, I was just stating that I think it's going well. What did you think?
She said she thinks it's going well, and then you didn't respond. That's what it sounded like.
I think my Wi-Fi froze or Kirshita froze. I don't know whose end it was on, but I think that we're getting a lot of positive feedback. So that's really nice. And that's why we keep doing it and why we keep going, because we are getting positive feedback, and I hope that it's helpful to people.
That's really cool. So it's just like an informational page, but it also branches and connects you with the correct people. Oh, did you guys freeze for me? No, I think we're okay. Oh, that was on purpose for dramatic effect.
Okay.
Yeah. So no, but that's a really cool page. I'll be sure to follow it. And I want to thank you guys for taking time out of your very busy schedule to attend our session and answer all of our burning questions. We appreciate it. Us and all of the virtual YouTube views. Yeah, thank you. So yes, I'm gonna stop the recording now, but thank you again for coming. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.